The phone rang at 2 a.m., a shrill cry slicing through the quiet of Caleb's Brooklyn apartment. He fumbled in the dark, heart pounding, knowing only one person would call at this hour: his mother. "Caleb, I need you." Her voice cracked, raw with desperation. "I'm pregnant, and I'm alone." Caleb, 28, sat frozen on the edge of his bed, the words sinking in like stones. His mother, Diane, 52, was starting over a new baby, a new life while he was still piecing together his own. He'd come out as gay 5 years ago, and though she'd hugged him tightly then, promising love, the distance between them had grown since. Now, this, a baby. The thought felt like a betrayal, a rewrite of the family he'd fought to hold on to. Beside him, Ethan, his partner of 3 years, stirred, his blonde hair catching the moonlight. "Who was that?" he mumbled, voice thick with sleep. Caleb's silence answered for him. Ethan sat up, concern etching his face. "Your mom again." Caleb nodded, staring at the floor. "She's pregnant. Wants me to come home. Help her." Ethan's hand found his, warm and steady. "You don't have to fix everything, Caleb. You're allowed to have your own life." But that was the problem. Caleb's life had always been tangled with his mother's. Growing up in a small Ohio town, he'd been her anchor after his father left when he was 10. Diane had worked double shifts at the diner, her hands rough from scrubbing plates, her smile fierce but fragile. Caleb had learned to cook, clean, and keep the house running by 12. He'd been her little man, her pride until he moved to New York, chasing art school and freedom. Coming out had been his first act of defiance, but it came with a cost. Diane never said it, but Caleb felt her disappointment, the unspoken fear that he'd abandoned her. Now, this baby, a half-sibling he hadn't asked for, from a man she hadn't even mentioned. Caleb's chest tightened. "She expects me to drop everything," he said, voice low, "like I owe her my life." Ethan pulled him close, his voice soft but firm. "You don't. But you'll go anyway, won't you?" Caleb didn't answer. He didn't need to. By morning, he was on a train to Ohio, the city skyline fading behind him. Ethan had stayed behind, his job as a nurse keeping him tethered to Brooklyn. "Call me every day," Ethan had said, kissing him at the station. "Don't let her guilt you into staying." The train rattled through fields and small towns, each mile pulling Caleb back to a life he'd tried to leave. He stared at his sketchbook, pencil idle in his hand. Art had been his escape, his way of making sense of the world. But lately, his drawings vibrant cityscapes, portraits of Ethan laughing felt hollow. He hadn't sold a piece in months. Maybe Diane was right. Maybe he was selfish, chasing dreams while she struggled. When he arrived at the familiar clapboard house, Diane was waiting on the porch, her belly round under a faded sweater. Her graying hair was pulled back, and her eyes, once sharp, looked tired. "You came," she said, voice catching. "Of course I did," Caleb replied, but the words felt heavy. He hugged her, the baby bump pressing against him, a stranger already between them. Inside, the house smelled of cinnamon and dust, unchanged since his childhood. Photos lined the mantel, Caleb at his high school graduation, Diane beaming beside him, a faded shot of his father, now a ghost. Diane sank into the couch, cradling her stomach. "It's a girl," she said softly. "Due in 2 months." Caleb sat across from her, hands clasped. "Who's the father?" Her face tightened. "He's gone. Doesn't matter." "Doesn't matter." Caleb's voice rose. "You're 52. Mom. You're alone. How are you going to do this? I'll manage. She snapped, then softened. I just need you here for a bit. To help me get ready. Caleb's jaw clenched. He wanted to say no. To tell her he had a life. A partner. A career, however shaky. But her eyes, pleading and proud, held him. Okay, he said finally. A few weeks. That's it. The next days were a blur of tension and routine. Caleb cleaned the nursery, assembled a crib, and drove Diane to doctor's appointments. The town buzzed with gossip, neighbors whispering about Diane's surprise baby and that gay son who finally showed up. Caleb ignored them, but the words stung. Selfish. Ungrateful. He overheard them at the grocery store, felt their stares at church. One night, Diane handed him a stack of baby clothes, her hands trembling. I kept these from when you were little, she said. Thought they might mean something. Caleb touched the tiny onesies, memories flooding back, his mother singing him to sleep, her laughter filling the house. But now, those memories felt like a trap. Why are you doing this, Mom? He asked. Why now? Her eyes glistened. Because I want a family again. Is that so wrong? Caleb didn't answer. He couldn't. The weight of her words, her expectations, pressed down on him. He missed Ethan, missed the life they were building. But leaving felt like betrayal. As the days stretched on, Caleb felt the pull of two worlds: his mother's need, his own heart. He didn't know how long he could stay, or what it would cost to leave. The Ohio air grew colder as October settled in, and Caleb felt the chill in more than just the weather. Each day in his mother's house stretched his patience thinner, the small town closing in like a vice. He woke to Diane's soft humming, her hands busy knitting tiny pink booties, and the sight made his chest ache with a mix of love and resentment. He called Ethan every night, their conversations a lifeline. She's acting like I'm staying forever, Caleb said, pacing the backyard under a starlit sky. She's got this whole plan, me helping with the baby, like I'm her live-in nanny. Ethan's voice was steady through the phone. You're not her keeper, Caleb. You've got to set boundaries. I know, Caleb sighed, kicking a pebble across the grass. But she looks at me like I'm all she's got. Like I'm abandoning her if I leave. You're not abandoning her, Ethan said. You're living your life. She needs to respect that. But respect felt like a foreign word in Diane's house. She'd hover as Caleb fixed leaky faucets or painted the nursery, dropping hints about how a baby needs family around. Each comment was a needle, pricking at his guilt. He'd catch her watching him, her eyes searching for the boy who'd once promised to never leave her side. One afternoon, while sorting through old boxes in the attic, Caleb found a photo album he hadn't seen in years. It was filled with pictures of him and his mom at 5, grinning with a missing tooth, her holding him at a county fair, her smile wide and unburdened. Tucked between the pages was a letter in his father's handwriting, dated a year after he'd left. I'm sorry, Diane. It read. I wasn't built for this. Take care of Caleb. Caleb's throat tightened. He'd always known his father was a coward, but seeing the words in ink made it real. Was he doing the same thing? Running from responsibility? He shoved the album back into the box, his hands shaking. Downstairs, Diane was folding baby blankets, her movements slow and deliberate. You're quiet today, she said, glancing up. Everything okay? Caleb hesitated, the letters weighed heavy in his mind. Just found some old stuff in the attic. Dad's letter. Her face stiffened, but she didn't look away. He was never going to stay, she said quietly. But you did. You always did. The words hit like a punch. Caleb wanted to scream that he wasn't her savior, that he had his own life to live. But instead, he nodded, unable to meet her eyes. That evening, the doorbell rang, shattering the house's quiet. It was Mrs. Harper, the nosy neighbor who'd known Caleb since he was a kid. She stood on the porch, clutching a casserole dish, her eyes sharp with judgment. "Heard you're back," she said, peering past Caleb at Diane. "About time you helped your poor mother. A baby at her age. She'll need you." Caleb forced a smile, taking the dish. "Thanks, Mrs. Harper." As she left, Diane muttered, "They all think I'm crazy for this baby. They don't say it, but I hear it." "Then why do it?" Caleb asked, sharper than he meant. "Why put yourself through this?" Diane's eyes flashed with defiance. "Because I want to feel alive again. I want someone to love who won't leave me." The words stung, and Caleb turned away, retreating to his old bedroom. He sat on the creaky mattress, staring at a sketch he'd drawn years ago, a self-portrait, all sharp lines and shadowed eyes. He barely recognized that boy now. The next morning, Diane asked him to drive her to a prenatal class at the community center. The room was filled with younger, expectant mothers, their partners at their sides, all chatter and excitement. Caleb felt out of place, the only son in a sea of husbands. Diane gripped his arm, her smile nervous but proud. "You're good to me," she whispered. He wanted to believe her, but the whispers followed them. At the grocery store, the cashier, a former classmate of Caleb's, leaned in and said, "Heard you're playing dad now. Didn't think you'd come back for this." Caleb's face burned. "I'm not playing anything," he snapped, grabbing the bags. Back home, Diane was quiet, her hands resting on her belly. "They don't understand," she said finally. "They think I'm selfish for wanting this baby. Maybe they think you're selfish for not wanting it." Caleb froze. "I never said I didn't want it." "But you don't," she said, her voice soft but piercing. "I see it in your face. Caleb, you're here, but you're already gone." The truth of her words cut deep. He was here, fixing her house, driving her to appointments. But his heart was in Brooklyn with Ethan, in the life he'd built. He wanted to tell her he loved her, that he'd always be her son, but the words stuck in his throat. That night, he called Ethan again, his voice breaking. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "I feel like I'm losing myself." Ethan was quiet for a moment, then said, "Come home, Caleb. We'll figure it out together." But Caleb wasn't sure he could. Not yet. The baby was coming, and with it, a choice he wasn't ready to make. Caleb woke to the sound of rain tapping against the window, a gray haze settling over the Ohio town. The house felt smaller each day, its walls closing in as Diane's due date loomed closer. He'd been in Ohio for 3 weeks, and the weight of his mother's expectations was suffocating. He spent his mornings sketching in the backyard, trying to reclaim a piece of himself. The drawings were rough, angry lines, jagged shapes, but they were his. Ethan had texted him a photo of their Brooklyn apartment, sunlight streaming through the window, with a simple caption, "Miss you." Caleb stared at it, his thumb tracing Ethan's name on the screen. Diane noticed his distraction. "You're always on that phone," she said one morning, stirring oatmeal at the stove. "Is it Ethan?" Caleb nodded, slipping the phone into his pocket. "He's just checking in." She set the spoon down, her voice careful. "He's a good man, but he doesn't understand what it's like to need family." Caleb's jaw tightened. "He's my family, Mom." Diane's eyes flickered with something hurt. Maybe, or regret, but she turned back to the stove. "I know," she said softly. "But so am I." The tension between them grew, a silent battle of loyalty and guilt. Caleb tried to focus on helping buying diapers, stocking the fridge, but every task felt like a chain. The town didn't help. At the hardware store, a former teacher clapped him on the shoulder and said, "Good to see you stepping up. Caleb, your mom needs a man around." The words grated, implying he was less for being gay, for having a life elsewhere. One evening, Diane asked him to join her at a church potluck, a rare outing for her these days. Caleb hesitated, remembering the judgmental stares from years past. But he went. The church basement was crowded, the air thick with casserole and small-town gossip. Diane clung to his arm, her smile forced as neighbors approached. "Caleb, you're looking well," said Mrs. Larson, a woman who'd once taught him Sunday school. Her eyes darted to Diane's belly. "Must be hard, coming back to all this." "It's fine," Caleb said. His voice clipped. Another woman, Mrs. Tate, chimed in, her tone syrupy. "It's so good of you to help your mother. A baby at her age well. It's a miracle, isn't it?" Caleb forced a nod, but their pitying smiles burned. He excused himself, stepping outside to breathe. The rain had stopped, leaving the air heavy and damp. He leaned against the church wall, pulling out his phone to text Ethan, "I can't do this much longer." Ethan's reply came quickly, "You're stronger than you think. But you don't have to stay." Caleb closed his eyes, torn. He wanted to go home, to collapse into Ethan's arms and forget Ohio. But abandoning Diane now felt like abandoning the boy who'd promised to protect her. Back inside, Diane was laughing with a group of women, her hand on her belly. For a moment, she looked young again, the mother who'd danced with him in the kitchen to old radio songs. But when she caught his eye, her smile faded, replaced by something fragile. Later, as they drove home, Diane broke the silence. "You don't have to stay. You know, I can manage." Caleb gripped the steering wheel. "You keep saying that, but you don't mean it." She looked out the window, her voice barely audible. "I just want you to be happy. But I'm scared. Caleb, this baby, she's all I have left." Her words hung in the air, heavy with truth. Caleb wanted to argue, to tell her she was enough. But he couldn't. He was angry at her, at himself, at the town that judged them both. The next day, a letter arrived, addressed to Diane in unfamiliar handwriting. Caleb found her reading it at the kitchen table, her face pale. "What is it?" he asked. She folded the letter, her hands unsteady. "It's from the father. He wants to meet." Caleb's stomach dropped. "The father? I thought he was gone." "He was," she said, her voice tight. "But now he's back. Says he wants to be involved." Caleb's mind raced. Who was this man? Why now? He watched Diane, her eyes distant, and felt a surge of protectiveness. "Do you want him involved?" he asked. She shook her head, but her expression was uncertain. "I don't know. I thought I could do this alone. But maybe." "Maybe what?" Caleb pressed, his voice sharp. "You're just going to let some guy waltz in now?" Diane's eyes met his, fierce and raw. "Don't judge me, Caleb. You don't know what it's like to be alone." The words cut deeper than he expected. He turned away, storming to his room, where he sat sketching furiously, lines spiraling into chaos. He didn't know how to fix this mother, the baby, the stranger threatening to upend everything. All he knew was that he was drowning, and home felt further away than ever. The letter from the baby's father sat on the kitchen counter like a ticking bomb. Caleb couldn't stop glancing at it, the unfamiliar handwriting a stark reminder of the chaos creeping into their lives. Diane hadn't mentioned it again, But her silence spoke louder than words. Caleb threw himself into distractions, painting the nursery walls a soft pink, organizing baby supplies, anything to avoid the growing rift between them. But the house felt like a pressure cooker. Every conversation laced with unspoken tension. Diane's mood swung between hope and fear. Her eyes often red from crying when she thought Caleb wasn't looking. One morning, while Diane napped, Caleb called Ethan, his voice low. "Some guy's back in the picture. The baby's father. I don't trust it." Ethan's tone was cautious. "What does she say about him?" "Nothing," Caleb said, frustration bubbling. "She's shutting me out. Like I'm just here to fix things and shut up." "Maybe she's scared," Ethan offered. "This is a lot for her, too." Caleb rubbed his temples. "I know, but I'm not her husband. I'm her son. I can't be everything she needs." Ethan's voice softened. "You're enough, Caleb. You always have been." The words warmed him, but they didn't erase the knot in his chest. That afternoon, Diane asked him to drive her to a coffee shop in town to meet the man. "His name's Tom," she said, her voice unsteady. He's not a bad person. Just complicated." Caleb wanted to argue, to demand answers, but her pleading eyes stopped him. "Fine," he said, "but I'm staying." The coffee shop was small, with chipped mugs and a jukebox humming in the corner. Tom was already there, a man in his late 50s with graying hair and a nervous smile. He stood when they entered, his eyes locking on Diane's belly. "You look good," he said softly. Diane's face flushed, and Caleb's stomach twisted. He sat beside her, arms crossed, studying Tom. The man seemed earnest, but there was something guarded in his eyes, a hint of someone who'd run before. "I didn't know about the baby until recently," Tom said, his hands wrapped around a coffee mug. "I want to help, Diane. I want to be there." Caleb's jaw clenched. "Where were you 9 months ago?" Tom's eyes flicked to him, surprised but not defensive. "I made a mistake. I panicked. But I'm here now." Diane reached for Caleb's hand under the table, her grip tight. "He's trying. Caleb," she whispered. Caleb pulled his hand away. Trying doesn't erase leaving. The meeting ended with vague promises Tom would call. They'd figure things out. Caleb drove home in silence, his mind racing. He didn't trust Tom. Didn't trust this sudden redemption arc. But Diane's face, soft with hope, made him question everything. Was he being selfish, standing in the way of her happiness? That night, Caleb couldn't sleep. He sat on the porch, sketching the stars, when Diane joined him, a blanket around her shoulders. "You don't like him," she said. Not a question. "He left you," Caleb said, his pencil still. "What makes you think he won't again?" Diane sighed, her breath visible in the cold air. "I don't know if he will. But I'm tired of being alone. Caleb, I thought you'd understand that." Her words hit like a slap. "You think I don't get it? I'm here, Mom. I came back for you." "But you don't want to be," she said, her voice breaking. "I see it every day. You're here, but your heart's with Ethan." Caleb's throat burned. "That's not fair. I love you, but I can't be your whole world." Diane looked away, tears glistening. "I just want us to be a family. You, me, the baby, maybe even Tom." Caleb stood, his sketchbook falling to the ground. "I'm not your husband, Mom, and I'm not staying to play house with some guy who might bolt again." He walked inside, leaving her on the porch. The next day, he found her on the phone with Tom, laughing in a way he hadn't heard in years. It should have made him happy, but it only deepened the ache. He was losing her to a stranger, to a baby, to a life he didn't fit into. By week's end, Tom started showing up at the house, bringing groceries, fixing the porch step. Caleb watched him like a hawk, waiting for a misstep. But Tom was patient, kind even, asking Caleb about his art, his life in New York. "You're talented," Tom said once, looking at a sketch Caleb had left out. "Diane's proud of you. You know." Caleb didn't respond. He didn't want Tom's approval. He wanted his life back. But as the days passed, he saw Diane's smile grow, her shoulders lighten. And that scared him more than anything because it meant she might not need him anymore. Caleb's days in Ohio began to blur, each one a tug-of-war between duty and desire. Tom's presence grew steadier, his truck parked in the driveway more often than not. Diane seemed to bloom under his attention, her laughter filling the house. But Caleb felt like an outsider in his own childhood home. He spent hours sketching in the garage, the only place he could think clearly. His latest piece was a portrait of Ethan, his eyes bright with the quiet strength Caleb leaned on. But the lines felt forced, his hands unsteady with doubt. Was he selfish for wanting to leave? For wanting Ethan more than this? One evening, Tom caught him in the garage, studying the sketch. "That's really something," Tom said, his voice genuine. "You've got a gift." Caleb stiffened, closing the sketchbook. "Thanks," he muttered, brushing past him. Tom didn't push. But later, at dinner, he tried again. "Diane tells me you're an artist in New York. That's a big deal." Caleb poked at his food, his patience thin. "It's not as glamorous as it sounds." Diane's eyes softened. "You're too hard on yourself, Caleb. You always were." The compliment stung more than it soothed. Caleb excused himself, retreating to his room. He called Ethan, his voice barely above a whisper. "I feel like I'm disappearing here," he said. "Tom's taking over, and Mom's acting like everything's fine." Ethan's voice was steady, grounding. "You're not disappearing. You're just caught in her storm. Come home, Caleb. We'll figure out what's next." But leaving felt impossible. Diane's due date was weeks away, and the nursery still needed finishing. Caleb threw himself into the tasks, hoping the work would quiet his mind. He painted the crib, hung curtains, and organized tiny clothes, each task a reminder of the baby who'd change everything. One afternoon, while Diane was at a doctor's appointment with Tom, Caleb found a journal tucked under her bed. It was old, the pages yellowed, filled with her handwriting, entries from his childhood, his coming out, his move to New York. One line stopped him cold. "Caleb's gone. And I'm so proud. But I'm so alone." He closed the journal, his chest tight. He'd always known she struggled, but seeing her loneliness in ink made it real. Was that why she wanted this baby? To fill the void he'd left? When Diane returned, Caleb confronted her, the journal in his hand. "Why didn't you tell me how you felt?" he asked, his voice shaking. "All those years. You let me think you were okay." Diane's face crumpled. "I didn't want to hold you back. You had your dreams, your life with Ethan. I couldn't ask you to stay." "But you're asking now," Caleb said, his voice raw. "You're asking me to give up everything." "I'm not," she said, tears falling. "I just need you for a little while. Please, Caleb." He wanted to stay angry, to demand she see his side. But her tears stopped him. He hugged her, feeling the baby kick between them, a small life demanding space. The next day, Tom invited Caleb for coffee, just the two of them. Caleb went, more out of curiosity than trust. They sat at the same coffee shop, the air thick with unspoken tension. "I know you don't like me," Tom said, stirring his coffee. "And I get it. I left your mom when she needed me. But I'm trying to make it right." Caleb leaned back, arms crossed. "Why should I believe you?" Tom's eyes met his, steady and sad. "Because I love her. And I want to love this baby. I know I can't replace you. Caleb, I'm not trying to." The words caught Caleb off guard. He wanted to hate Tom, to see him as the villain. But the man's sincerity chipped away at his defenses. "She's been through enough," Caleb said finally. "Don't hurt her again." "I won't," Tom promised. And for the first time, Caleb almost believed him. Back home, Diane was waiting, her eyes searching his. "You okay?" she asked. Caleb nodded. But the truth was messier. He was trying to be okay for her, for the baby, for himself. But the pull of Brooklyn, of Ethan, grew stronger every day. He didn't know how much longer he could stay, or what it would mean if he left. That night, he sketched again, this time a portrait of Diane, her face lined with hope and fear. It was the first drawing in weeks that felt true. Maybe, he thought, he could find a way to love her without losing himself. But the baby was coming, and with it, a truth he wasn't ready to face. The first snow fell in Ohio, dusting the town in silence. Caleb watched it from the porch, his breath visible in the cold, his mind a tangle of guilt and longing. Diane's due date was days away, and the house hummed with anticipation and tension. Tom was a constant now, helping with chores, cooking dinners, his presence a quiet challenge to Caleb's place in the family. Diane leaned on him, her smiles brighter, but Caleb felt the distance between them growing. He was her son, not her partner, yet the town's whispers painted him as the selfish one, the gay son who'd rather run than stay. He called Ethan daily, each conversation a reminder of the life waiting in Brooklyn. "I'm coming home soon," Caleb promised one night, his voice low to avoid waking Diane. "I just need to see her through this." Ethan's tone was gentle but firm. "You're doing more than enough. Don't let her make you feel like you owe her your life." Caleb wanted to believe him, but guilt was a heavy anchor. He threw himself into the final preparations, stocking the freezer, setting up a changing table, hoping the work would quiet his doubts. But at night, he'd lie awake, sketching fragments of his life, Ethan's smile, Diane's hands, the baby he hadn't met. One morning, Diane woke him with a sharp cry. "Caleb, it's time," she gasped, clutching her belly. Panic seized him, but he moved on instinct, grabbing her bag, helping her to the car. Tom was there in minutes, his face pale but calm. "I'll drive," he said, and Caleb didn't argue. The hospital was a blur of white walls and beeping monitors. Diane gripped Caleb's hand through the contractions, her face slick with sweat. "I'm scared," she whispered, her voice small. "You're strong," Caleb said, squeezing her hand. "You've got this." Tom stood by her other side, his presence steady but foreign. Caleb watched him, torn between resentment and gratitude. When the doctor announced it was time to push, Caleb stayed, his heart pounding. Diane's cries filled the room. And then, a new sound, a baby's wail. The nurse placed the tiny girl in Diane's arms, her face red and wrinkled, eyes blinking against the light. Diane sobbed, her smile radiant. "Her name's Lily," she said, looking at Caleb. "After your grandma." Caleb's throat tightened. He touched Lily's tiny hand, her fingers curling around his. She was real, fragile, and his sister. The weight of it hit him hard. Tom stepped back, giving them space. But Caleb saw the tears in his eyes. For the first time, He felt a flicker of respect. Maybe Tom wasn't the enemy. Maybe he was just a man trying to make things right. Back home, the house transformed. Lily's cries echoed through the night. And Caleb learned to change diapers, heat bottles, and soothe her to sleep. Diane was exhausted but happy, her eyes bright with love. Tom was there too, taking night shifts, his patience surprising Caleb. But the town's judgment didn't stop. At the grocery store, a neighbor cornered Caleb. "Heard you're playing house now," she said, her tone sharp. "Guess you're not so selfish after all." Caleb's face burned. "I'm here for my mom," he said, walking away. But the words lingered, feeding his doubts. Was he selfish for wanting his own life? For loving Ethan more than this? One night, while rocking Lily to sleep, Caleb overheard Diane and Tom talking in the kitchen. "He's leaving soon," Diane said, her voice low. "I can feel it." "He loves you," Tom replied. "But he's got his own path. You have to let him go." Caleb's heart sank. He wanted to stay for Lily, for Diane. But the pull of Brooklyn was stronger than ever. He missed Ethan's laugh, their quiet mornings, the life they'd built. The next day, he found Diane in the nursery, watching Lily sleep. "You're good with her," she said, her voice soft. "I didn't expect that." Caleb sat beside her, his hands clasped. "I love her, Mom, but I can't stay forever." Diane's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. "I know. I wanted us to be a family." "We are," Caleb said, his voice breaking. "But I need Ethan. I need my life." She reached for his hand, her grip firm. "I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to choose." The apology was a crack in the wall between them. Caleb hugged her, tears falling, knowing he'd leave soon but not yet. Lily needed him, and so did Diane. But so did he. Lily's cries became the rhythm of Caleb's days, a constant reminder of the life he was tethered to. The Ohio winter deepened, snow piling against the windows, and Caleb felt trapped in a life that wasn't his. Yet, every time he looked at Lily, her tiny hands reaching for him felt a love he hadn't expected. Diane was healing, her strength returning, but she leaned heavily on Caleb and Tom. The three of them formed an uneasy team, trading shifts to care for Lily. Caleb noticed Tom's quiet competence, how he sang to Lily, how he made Diane laugh. It softened Caleb's edges, but not enough to erase the ache for Brooklyn. He called Ethan one night, Lily asleep on his chest. "She's beautiful," he said, his voice soft. "But I miss you so much it hurts." Ethan's laugh was warm through the phone. "Send me a picture of her. And come home soon." "Okay. I'm losing my mind without you." Caleb smiled, but the words "come home" echoed. He wanted to, desperately. But leaving felt like betraying Diane and Lily. The town's gossip didn't help. At the post office, a cashier smirked. "Still playing dad. Thought you'd be back in New York by now." Caleb ignored her, but the words festered. He wasn't playing Dada, was a brother, a son, caught in a role he hadn't chosen. One afternoon, while Diane napped, Tom found Caleb in the kitchen, washing bottles. "You're good with Lily," Tom said, leaning against the counter. "But you don't have to stay forever." Caleb's hands stilled. "You sound like Ethan." Tom smiled faintly. "He's right. Diane's tough. She'll be okay. And I'm not going anywhere this time." Caleb studied him, searching for a lie. But Tom's eyes were steady. "Why'd you come back?" Caleb asked. "After leaving her." Tom's face tightened. "I was scared. Thought I wasn't cut out for this. But when I heard about the baby, I couldn't stay away." I want to be the man she deserves. Caleb nodded, unsure if he believed him, but wanting to. That evening, he sketched Tom holding Lily, capturing the tenderness he hadn't seen before. It was the first time he'd drawn Tom, and it felt like a small surrender. Days later, Diane asked Caleb to join her for a walk. Lily bundled in a stroller. The air was crisp, the town quiet under a blanket of snow. "I've been hard on you," Diane said, her voice low. "I didn't mean to make you feel trapped." Caleb's throat tightened. "I just want you to be happy, Mom. But I need to be happy too." She stopped, her eyes meeting his. "I know. And I'm so proud of you, Caleb. I got scared you'd forget me." "Never," he said, pulling her into a hug. "You're my mom." The moment felt like a turning point, but the real shift came a week later. Caleb woke to find Diane in the living room, staring at a letter from Tom. "He's moving in," she said, her voice a mix of joy and nerves. "He wants to be here for good." Caleb's stomach twisted, but he saw the light in her eyes. "Are you sure about him?" he asked. She nodded. "He's trying, Caleb. And I believe him." The news should have freed Caleb, but it didn't. He felt replaced, his role shrinking as Tom stepped in. That night, he booked a train ticket to Brooklyn for the following week. He didn't tell Diane. Not yet. The day before he planned to leave, the town held a small baby shower for Diane at the community center. Caleb went, pushing Lily's stroller, feeling the weight of every stare. Mrs. Harper approached, her smile tight. "You're leaving soon, aren't you? Can't blame you. This isn't your life." Caleb's face burned, but he didn't respond. He looked at Lily, her tiny face peaceful, and felt a pang. She wasn't his responsibility, but she was his sister. At the shower, Diane glowed, thanking everyone for their gifts. Tom stood by her, his arm around her shoulders. And for the first time, Caleb saw them as a family one he wasn't part of. The realization hurt, but it also clarified something. He could love them from afar. That night, he packed his bag, his sketchbook filled with drawings of Lily, Diane, and even Tom. He was ready to go home, but the weight of leaving lingered. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew he couldn't stay. Caleb's last day in Ohio dawned clear, the snow melting under a weak winter sun. His train ticket to Brooklyn sat on the dresser, a quiet promise of freedom. He hadn't told Diane yet, dreading the moment her eyes would dim with hurt. He spent the morning with Lily, rocking her gently, memorizing her tiny features. She'd changed him. This small life he hadn't wanted, but now loved fiercely. Diane found him in the nursery, her smile soft but sad. "You're leaving, aren't you?" she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Caleb nodded, his throat tight. "Tomorrow. I need to go home, Mom." She sat beside him, her hand on his arm. "I know. I just hoped maybe you'd stay a little longer." "I can't," he said, his voice breaking. "I love you, and I love Lily, but I have a life with Ethan. I need to live it." Diane's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. "I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to choose. You're my son, Caleb. I'll always love you." The words were a balm, soothing years of guilt. Caleb hugged her, Lily between them, and for the first time in weeks, he felt whole. That evening, Tom cooked dinner, a simple meal of spaghetti and garlic bread. The table was quiet, the weight of Caleb's departure hanging over them. Tom broke the silence, raising a glass. "To Caleb," he said, "for being here when it mattered." Caleb's eyes stung, but he clinked glasses. surprised by the warmth in Tom's voice. After dinner, Tom pulled him aside. "I'll take care of them," he said. "You don't have to worry." Caleb studied him, seeing the man who'd come back, who'd stayed. "I'll hold you to that," he said, and they shared a small, understanding smile. The next morning, Diane drove him to the station, Lily strapped in the back seat. The air was thick with unspoken words. But when they reached the platform, Diane hugged him tightly. "Come back soon," she said, her voice trembling. "Lily needs her big brother." "I will," Caleb promised, kissing her cheek. He leaned into the car, touching Lily's tiny hand. "Love you, kid." The train pulled away, and Caleb watched Ohio fade, his heart heavy but lighter than before. He opened his sketchbook, filled with drawings of his family. Diane's smile, Lily's eyes, even Tom's quiet strength. He'd carry them with him, always. In Brooklyn, Ethan was waiting at the station, his grin wide and warm. Caleb ran to him, the weight of weeks falling away as they embraced. "You're home," Ethan said, his voice muffled against Caleb's shoulder. "I'm home," Caleb echoed, and for the first time, he believed it. Months later, Caleb got a call from Diane. She was crying, but her voice was bright. "Tom proposed," she said, "and we want you and Ethan here for the wedding." Caleb smiled, glancing at Ethan across their apartment, where his latest painting, a vibrant portrait of Lily, hung on the wall. "We'll be there," he said. The wedding was small, held in the church basement, with Lily in a tiny dress. Stealing the show, Caleb stood beside Diane, Ethan at his side, and felt the pieces of his life align. The town still whispered, calling him the selfish gay son who'd left. But he didn't care. He'd learned love wasn't about staying, it was about showing up, even when it hurt. As Diane and Tom exchanged vows, Caleb squeezed Ethan's hand, tears in his eyes. He wasn't losing his family. He was building a bigger one that stretched from Ohio to Brooklyn, bound by love, not obligation. The twist wasn't the baby or Tom's return, it was Caleb finding his place, not as the son who fixed everything, but as the man who loved fiercely, flaws and all. And as Lily's laughter echoed through the room, Caleb knew he'd never been selfish, just human, searching for home.